I still remember the exact second everything shifted, not quietly, not politely, but like a glass shattering in slow motion. I was standing in a hotel hallway in heels I paid for outside a wedding suite. I paid for listening to a woman who was about to marry my brother tell me with a smile, sharp enough to cut, that I needed to leave because I was making people uncomfortable. And I swear, in that moment I didn't feel angry. Yet I felt confused, like my brain was a second behind my heart, trying to catch up. You know that feeling, right? When something is so wrong, your body reacts before your logic does. Let me rewind a bit because none of this came out of nowhere, even if it felt that way at the time. My name is Claire. I'm the older sister, the responsible one, the fixer, the one who learned early that if you don't step up, everything falls apart. When our parents died, my brother Evan was 15 and angry at the world, and I was 24 pretending I wasn't terrified. I worked 2 jobs, then 3 pushed my own dreams off a cliff so his could survive. College tuition, rent, groceries, late-night talks when he couldn't sleep. I did all of it without keeping score because that's what family means, or at least what I believed it meant. Years passed. Evan grew up. I built a consulting business from nothing, the kind of work where you don't get applause, just results. I became financially stable, then comfortable, then eventually the person people called when they needed something handled. So when Evan told me he was engaged to Lily and said her family had cut her off, said they wouldn't help with the wedding, I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask for spreadsheets or limits. I just said, yeah, I've got you. I told myself I was doing it for him, but if I'm being honest, part of me wanted to give him the wedding. I never had the life I postponed. The venue, the flowers, the band, the dress, all of it added up fast, but every time I wrote another check I thought, this is worth it. He's happy. That's enough. Except Lily was never really grateful. She was polite in public, sharp in private. Comments disguised as jokes. Eye rolls when I asked about details. Little reminders that I wasn't really part of her world. I ignored it. I told myself she was stressed that weddings turn people into monsters, that it would all smooth out once the big day passed. Yeah, that was my first mistake. The morning of the wedding, Lily was snapping at everyone. Makeup artists, stylists, anyone within range. I stood in the corner of the bridal suite trying to stay invisible until she turned to me and said casually, like she was asking someone to grab coffee, "Claire, you can head out now. This is bride time." I laughed, actually, not because it was funny, but because it didn't compute. I said something like I just wanted to make sure everything's okay. She didn't even look at me when she replied, "Everything's paid for. That part's done." That was the first crack. The second came later, when I found out I wasn't seated with immediate family. I was placed 3 rows back while people I'd never met, people wearing watches that cost more than my first car, filled the front. Someone leaned over during cocktail hour and whispered, not knowing I could hear, "That's his sister. She doesn't really have a life, so she throws money at things." I wish I could say I stood up for myself right then, but I didn't. I swallowed it. I stayed quiet. I stayed because I didn't want to ruin Evan's day. I stayed because I still believed that if I just endured a little more, things would balance out. Then came the speeches. Lily thanked everyone, her parents, her friends, the planner, the venue, the band. People clapped. I waited. I kept waiting. And then she smiled, looked straight at me and said something about how real family isn't about money, how some people think writing checks entitles them to belonging. The room went still. I felt my face burn. And before I could even process it, security appeared at my table and quietly asked me to leave. I looked at Evan. I really did. I waited for him to stand up to say, "Hey, that's my sister." He didn't. He stared at his glass like it had the answers. And that was it. That was the moment the glass finally shattered. I walked out with my head up, hands shaking, heart pounding. And as soon as the doors closed behind me, something snapped into place. Every contract for that wedding was in my name. Every vendor. Every payment. I wasn't just a guest. I was the client. So I made a call. Then another. Within 30 minutes, I was back inside, not as a spectator, but as the person who owned every single decision being made in that room. When I took the microphone, the music cut out and you could feel the tension ripple like electricity. I didn't scream. I didn't insult anyone. I just told the truth. I said my name. I said what I'd paid for. I said that since I was removed from an event I legally contracted, I was exercising my right to cancel the remaining services. No dessert. No open bar past 10. No band. No cake cutting. Gasps. Shouting. Lily lunged forward, furious, yelling that I couldn't do this. I looked at her and said calmly, "You already asked me to leave. I'm just taking my money with me." I walked out while chaos exploded behind me. And for the first time in years, I felt light. Terrified, humiliated, heartbroken, yes, but also free. The internet had opinions, of course. Some people called me petty. Others called me a legend. Evan showed up the next morning, angry, embarrassed, more concerned about Lily's family connections than about how I'd been treated. And that's when the truth came out piece by piece. Lily's family was never cut off. They'd done this before. Let someone else pay, smile, reconcile later. Evan knew, or at least he knew enough. I sued. I won. Not just money, but clarity. And instead of pouring that energy back into anger, I did something else. I built something. A support network for people who'd been used, dismissed, pushed aside by family who only valued what they could take. I met people who saw me not as a wallet or a safety net, but as a person. Evan and I don't talk much now. Maybe we never will the way we used to, and that still hurts. But here's the truth no one tells you. Sometimes the victory isn't keeping the relationship alive. Sometimes it's finally choosing yourself. So here's my question for you. Was I wrong for canceling that wedding? Or was it the first honest thing I'd done in years? Where do you draw the line between generosity and being used? I want to know what you think, because I promise this story isn't as rare as people like to pretend.